All right, I hope that everybody just looked at the problems assigned 10.1 and 10.5 and used and net present value and internal rate of return to evaluate the problems as opposed to what the textbook said. If you did use payback or ROA, give me a call and I'll or email me and I'll send you the solutions. I didn't assign you homework problems for return on or for ROA. I'm sorry, and payback, because those are usually fairly simple to calculate. On the study guide, we do have two problems. So if you're having challenges with either of those, let me know, or any four of the evaluation methods, let me know, and we can talk through them. All right. So on 10.1, the consideration or the problem is that we're investing $100,000 in a restaurant. We have four cash flows from that investment of $10,000, $30,000, $40,000, and $60,000. So we first want to do net present value, and what net present value asks us is the present value of the cash flows equal or greater than the initial investment. If the present value of the cash flows are equal or greater than the initial investment, then we accept. If they're not, then we decline. All right, so we go ahead and we look at our present value for single cash flows table, and we at 10% we go down from 1 through 4, and we get our 0.9091, 0.8264 on down to 0.6830. And we go ahead and do our math across. Okay, $100,000 investment is a negative. I guess I have the comma in the wrong spot there, or I have an extra comma in the present value, but we all know that's $100,000. So at time period 0, we invest $100,000, and then at time period 1, we get $10,000, and when we discount that, it's $9,091. In year 2, we discount that one by using the multiplier. We get $24,792. As you can see, doing these on Excel, I did this on Excel. It's really easy to do, and once you set up a formula, it makes doing the internal rate of return real simple. Unfortunately, we can't do that on the test. So we go ahead and we do our math. We multiply, we discount all four of those cash flows, and then we add everything up. I just went ahead and summed everything because my $100,000 is negative, and I get $4,915, and we accept. Now, the way that net present value and usually works is that we would accept every project that met our case of B, our line in the sand as far as interest rate. So if we had two accepts, we'd accept them both. If I ask you which one was best, which probably isn't a great thing to do, but if I do and they're both accept, you'll take the one with the larger net present value. Okay, so now we need to do IRR. If we go back, we notice that we accept this at 10%, and that should be a cue to tell us that the interest rate is higher than 10%. So when we start doing IRR, we should go above it. And I went ahead and I plugged in 12%, and I got real lucky. The net present value when the IRR is 12% is about 528. Negative. It doesn't matter if the net present value is positive, negative when we're doing internal rate of return. We just want to get close to 0. So I did real well. I got lucky. The internal rate of return for this investment is about 12%, and that would be your answer. If you wanted to be sure, you can go up to 14 and down to 11 and see if it gets any closer. I don't know if you noticed, but the textbook does not have a 13%. And I could tell you how to calculate 13%, but since we're not going to need it, we're not going to worry about it. If you do want to know how to calculate the 13%, please let me know, and I'll give you that information. Okay. 10.2, we have two or 10.5, I'm sorry, we have two alternatives. We have alternative A until about 1 and 2. And I just copied this straight out of the book, and I did this so that we can go ahead and do our net present value. Now what we're doing is we're comparing two investments, and we're choosing one based on net present value and over the other one, and then one based on IRR over the other one. Of course, they'll be the same one because net present value and IRR use the same criteria. All right, so alternative 1, again, at 10%, I go and I look in the book and I get my PV for 10% for 5 years, and that's that 0.901 all the way down to 0.6209. I do my math, and I add up the present value of all my cash flows, and I get 17,441, which is positive, so I accept alternative 1. Alternative 2, I'm doing net present value, and I do all the math. I get a negative 6,447. That tells me that I reject this one. Now, the next part of this is to calculate the IRR. So if we go back to alternative 1, we know that the internal rate of return of this investment is higher than 10%, probably much higher. And by the same token, when we look at alternative 2, we know that the IRR is lower than 10% because we did not accept it at 10%. So, first thing I did, is I plugged in 12%, and I calculated the net present value, and I got 8,050. I think I could probably do better than that, so I went ahead and I plugged in 14%, and I got about a negative 3,343, so it's a little bit less than 14%, and it's more than 12%. So, So I would assume that this is about 14%. If you put the IRR is about 14%, you're going to be fine. Because we're calculating these by hand, I just want you to make sure that you're using the closest interest rate. In the book, they're going to be on the test, they're going to be a little bit cleaner than this. They're not going to be exactly 0, but they're going to be close. There's going to be one sound answer. All right, on the second alternative, I plugged in 8%, and it went down to the net present value went down to a negative 2,729. I thought I'd get closer, so I plugged in 7%, and I got a net present value of 772 negative. So my answer is that the internal rate of return on the second investment, or the alternative 2, is about 7%. Again, this is hit and miss. On the first problem, I got lucky at 12%. On the second problem, I had to do 2 or 3 calculations. They're really timely if you're doing them by hand, but if you're doing them on Excel, they go a lot quicker. You will have a problem on the test similar to your study guide problem for the chapter. So your next homework assignment is actually one of your problems on the test, or comparable to one of your problems on the test. All right, let's go ahead and get back to work.